Thank you. Yeah. Hopefully it's working. I realize as the talk we're going that this is kind of the talk I wanted to do before the break, so then you could come and tell me if I'm stupid, or if I'm onto something. I'm very curious about what you think about this. Feel free to grab me after this or on Slack or wherever. It's just a bunch of thoughts that I needed to put down, I guess, and explain. So I don't know if you heard the word Luddite or Luddite. I have no idea how it's pronounced. Actually, I have the pronunciation later in the slide. I can't read the pronunciation alphabet, so you will tell me if I'm pronunciation is cool. But I keep finding people mentioning it lately, right? This is just like a bunch of things I've known. Yeah, apparently Luddites are everywhere nowadays. They just keep going. They keep going. They're everywhere. I don't know who these people are, but they're everywhere. And I don't like AI, so I try to join them. But turns out there's no Luddite organization, or at least they don't have a chapter in Stockholm. Who are those people? What's going on here? This is how it's pronounced. I can't read that alphabet. I wish I had studied this when I was instead of studying tech, but it is what it is. Luddite, yeah, Luddite, as I would say in French. So, you look it up a bit on the internet, and apparently they were founded by a guy named Ned Ludd, hence the name Luddite. That's a picture of him in 1812. And it's like they hate technology. They seem to reject it. Maybe they want to return. Maybe they're some kind of anarcho-primitivists. Like Amish or something. And then you keep reading on, and then you're like, well, maybe they just want to take direct action against technology, like this guy, just start blowing up things that start to do tech. I don't know, I'm very confused. Am I a Luddite? Because I don't like AI, and this guy seems to don't like AI either. So is there something going on? But luckily for you, I'm not just a game programmer. I'm also an history nerd. So of course I had to look up what Luddites were about, and then I'm going to be able to tell you about it. I don't do consulting for Luddites, by the way, but if you have performance problems in your application, feel free to give me a call. I'm sure I can do something about that. So, who were the Luddites? I'm going to have to set the stage. Raise your hand if you get that. What, really? Jesus Christ, you're really not my audience. This is Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World. My British friends cannot shut the up about this movie. I hate it because it portrays the French as the wrong people, and in the actual text, the bad guys are Americans. Anyway, it doesn't matter because it's not entirely correct because, when we're going to actually technically, our scene is March 1811. Napoleon is still master of Europe. It was a better time. Now textile mills are battlefields. Because it's 1811 and the British people are not having a great time. As mentioned before, Napoleon is master of Europe. He has instigated this thing called the Continental System, in which he's basically forbidding everybody to try to trade with the British because he just doesn't like them. And that's having some effects. Not nearly as good as he wanted, but it is having some effect. They're not having a great time. The economy is taking a downturn. There's a lot of unemployment. Prices are rising. It's not an amazing time. A couple years back, Americans also have decided that they're done with the British, so they also lost their colonies in the New World. Again, not an amazing time for the British. And here comes a problem. This thing that has been around for a while, it's called a stocking frame. It's used in textile industry to weave cotton and other materials, silk, mechanically instead of by hand. It's not new. It's a thing that's been around for over 200 years. Some people have tried to sell it. They tried to get a patent. Back in the day, Queen Elizabeth said, no, you're not getting a patent because that's going to be bad for the economy. It goes back and forth. But it starts getting really a lot of traction with the Industrial Revolution and all that stuff. And a bunch of people don't like that. A bunch of people get really upset about it. Because it goes against what they do. And those people are craftsmen. They would be what we call the Luddites today. They're mostly living in central England, and they are craftsmen by skilled tradesmen, basically. What they do is they are very good and skilled at weaving various kind of textiles. And what happens is their boss comes in and say, well, I just got this great machine that can weave. It doesn't weave great, but it weaves very cheap. So you're all fired, and I'm going to hire some guys who are very desperate to get a job for half your salary, and then this machine is going to do your job. And they don't like that. They don't take it very well. And one of the way that is remembered today is they grab a big hammer and they drive it through the machine. And you know, today it might seem a bit like crude, but that's all you need to stop your boss from replacing you from a machine back in the day, because those machines are expensive. And they're kind of bulky, and one hammer is good enough to just make them absolutely unusable. You would say that's kind of like a bit direct, especially I know Sweden is not really big into industrial actions. I've learned that as a union rep over the years. You say, why don't they strike? You know, like normal people. Here's the thing. Unions are illegal in England at the time. It's 3 months in prison if you start talking to your friends about forming a union. If you show up to a meeting, it's also 3 months in prison. So, well, they don't really have that option. If you start trying to organize in any way, you're out of luck. So instead, a few of them do some night raids and they just break down the textile mills to make sure that they can't be replaced by machines. How does the British government and the ruling class of the British Empire in 1811 react? Great, as you might guess. First of all, they make breaking machine a capital offense. So if you break a textile mill, now it's the death penalty. That's, you know, for start. It used to be like a misdemeanor, now it's a death penalty. And then, since that's not enough, they send the army. They send 12,000 militia and countrymen to stop the rebellion. That's more people than they committed against Napoleon in Spain at the same time, just FYI. Like you hear about like Wellington fighting Napoleon in Spain. He had less men that they sent against their own people for breaking a bunch of machines. Long story short, about 70 people are hanged and the rebellion stops. And that's basically the Luddites. For a long time, they've been disclaimed as people who just, you know, hate technology and just wanted to go back to simpler times. But more recently, they've been described by people as basically a collective bargaining by riot, which is like, well, you don't really have collective bargaining. Unionization is illegal. What do you do? Again, those people didn't hate technology, and that's usually why the term Luddite, I think, is misused. They didn't hate technology. Most of them were actually really fine with working with the machine. They told their boss, if I can keep my job and keep doing QA and tell you how to improve it, I'm fine. What I don't want to be is replaced by something that does really like cheap textile. Because again, they're craftsmen. Which brings us to today. And AI. Because some people think that this seems a bit. Oh, hello. How do I tell this Swedish machine to shut up?
You need an AI.
Like a. Is there an OK button? What do I do? See? Does anyone have a hammer? Maybe.
There should be an OK button because it says press OK.
But there's no OK button in this thing. There's menu, return, exit.
There should be an OK button, but it's probably not. So we're just trying to.
I hate machines. You see an OK button? I don't see an OK button. That's not a good sign. Ah! Thank you.
If you're too close, it doesn't work.
Exactly. So, you may think, tell me if that sounds familiar, right? It had some form of skilled tradesmanship, you know, something that is hard to master and takes like a bunch of expertise and training to get good at. Then there's some cheap labor coming up. It's made of poor quality, but it's readily available as long as you can pay enough money to buy the machine. And they don't have collective bargaining because this is just this is an industry that doesn't really have unions at the time for various reasons. So I look at this and I'm like, this feels somewhat familiar. But I'm going to focus on a few bits, right? Is AI cheap? Like, on the face of it, it is cheap, right? Like, I don't know, I mean, not for me personally, I'm not going to buy it. But, you know, like, for your boss, like an AI subscription to Cursor or whatever, it's like a couple hundreds max. I don't even know, like, it's in the tens or hundreds of dollars per month, per person. Compared to your salary, I think that goes into the cheap category. I will go with that, that's fair. But, is it really cheap, though? Because I looked at those numbers and they don't look good. They don't look good. Every time there is a new model, it seems to cost like 2 to 10 times more than the previous one to train. And they keep telling me, don't worry about it, eventually we'll get cheap. And every time they make a new model, it's way more expensive to train than the previous one, which is great if you hold NVIDIA shares. I don't know. How's that going to happen? My opinion is that usually how that works in tech nowadays is just that you just make sure you capture the market and then you jack up the price when people won't have a choice. That's usually how people go about this. I don't know. Maybe they won't. Maybe the price will always stay the same, and maybe it will always be cheap to use ChatGPT and Cursor and whatever. I don't know. I have a doubt. Like, I don't think it's as cheap as buy a machine. It's there and it just does the job, and it's not a monthly fee that might change at some whim. It's a different question. Is it making quality or is it just making garbage? Well, I was at a talk at a conference recently that tried to convince me that I should really, really get into AI or else I was going to be left behind. What I left behind was the talk. I was not really convinced that I should be left behind. I heard some very weird arguments. One of them was that, it's not great, but it's okay because I only use it for the stuff I don't care about. Like build files or scripts. Okay, that's okay, fine. For the thing you care about, obviously you actually don't use it because the results are garbage. But if it's for something that you don't really want to think about too much, just use AI. It's fine. It's cheap labor and nobody cares. I made a few talks about build systems. I felt a bit attacked about this, but okay, fine, sure. I was really not interested and not convinced by the talk. I run into this article, which I recommend you take a look at it. I am not 100% agreeing with it, but it's trying to make a point. And the point is, well, one of the points is AI changes every 3 months, so there's no point trying to have an opinion on it, because by the time you have an opinion, it's out of date because the new thing is different now. And the new cool thing is agents. And if you've not followed, or if you just followed a very bit, agents are basically, you know what? I don't think I can trust the computer to generate code, but I can trust it to understand what I mean and translate it to a bunch of bash commands. So basically what you do is that you explain in plain English to ChatGPT what you want to do, and it just translates it into a bunch of commands, and then it evokes tools that actually know what they're doing. Like actual code gen, your LLVM, Clang Tidizer, Clang Tidy, things like that. Basically the whole idea is like, we're gonna use ChatGPT to run a bunch of tools that are actually not depending on the phase of the moon or whatever, to decide if whether or not you get good code out, which is supposed to be the thing that tells people, no, see, now it's fine because the guy is not actually randomly trying to generate code. It's just invoking tools that are older, and it's just doing instrumentation. Like you invoke a bunch of commands and it does the thing for you, and then it iterates, and then if it fails to compile, it tries to run its own errors message through ChatGPT to figure out what the fix is. Then it tries a fix, then it applies Clang Tidy, blah, blah, blah in a loop. And the whole idea is that it's kind of cheap to run ChatGPT to execute command, and then you just run Clang Tidy and whatever else to figure out the results. I still don't think it's cheap. Maybe your AI build is a bit cheaper because the only thing it does is to figure out which command to run and not the actual entire code. But then you still need to pay the CPU cost of running whatever actual tool it's running behind the scene, Clang Tidy, whatever else. So I thought it was an interesting perspective. I'm still not entirely sold, but this is supposed to be a lightning talk, so I'm going to try to leave you with 2 thoughts from everything I read about AI and being called a ludist. The first one is that I keep reading from time to time is that, agents are going to be the future, because I'm going to be sitting at the beach, and every morning I'll just ask the agents to do my job, basically, and then every couple hours between margaritas, I'm going to check what's going on and then maybe issue more commands. I have bad news for you. If your job is sitting at the beach sipping margarita, your boss is going to notice, and then he's going to replace you with the agent, and you're not going to have a job. That's the history of the working force under our economic system. Is basically that. Like it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's never worked. It's not going to change. That's if you think like that, you're going to have a problem. The second one that is, I think, more interesting. It's about automation, right? It's like, oh yeah, I can get this stuff to do a lot of interesting automation. And that's the bit that initially prompted me to write this talk, but I need to talk about history, so that's why you get 10 minutes of me rambling about Luddites before, which is, we engineers like to do automation, right? We like to automate things, we like to make things better, and a lot of those things are not new. Like when they mention, no, now we're switching back to agent, and the only thing the agent does is run existing code generators and run like existing like sanitizers and blah and blah and blah. And then I want to ask a question to, my CTO. I don't have a CTO right now. Your CTO, any CTO, really, is like, okay, why is it what are the odds in your company that you've been asking like for some money, some budget, some time maybe to refactor or automate the parts that you don't like? You know, those bits that nobody wants to look at because, you know, the build files, the auto generation of your like a glue code with some API, whatnot. I'm sure this is a solved problem, and I'm so sure that with enough time, you could probably have come up with something that just cleans the whole thing and makes it quite easy so that, yes, you just run a command in a bash and then you get that boring part done and you don't need ChatGPT to do it because, you know, it's not like CodeGen is new. And I studied RPC in school. It's like, what, 50 years old, 40 years old? Then we got SOAP. We got a lot of, like, it's not a new problem. None of this is new. And my question is, okay, is it normal and is it okay that maybe you've tried to make a case for years, decades maybe, that maybe your code base should be improved by more tooling, and you got like, no, sorry, we have to ship. But then some guy called Sam Altman come to your boss and say, if you give me like $100 per month, I'm going to solve all your problems. And then you get mandated by your boss to try ChatGPT at work because that's going to solve all your problems. I think it is because us engineers are really bad at making a business case. I'm guilty of it. I think a lot of us are guilty of it. But I think this is a really interesting question that I don't think is talked about enough is, why is it that we had a lot of buy-in from CTOs about like AI tech that seems to randomly spit out code from ChatGPT? Meanwhile, every time you ask, hey, can I just make a code gen that doesn't break every other time, or can I remove those flaky tests from my pipeline? You're like, no, sorry, we have to ship. Just a thought. Thank you.